Welcome to Doc NYC's 2024 Spring Showcase, or mid-year celebration of documentary films and series. I am Ruth Somalo, Senior Features Programmer for Doc NYC, and I'm so excited to be leading a conversation today about the three-part series Secrets of the Octopus, brought to us by National Geographic. It's my great pleasure to be speaking today with Alex Schnell, lead storyteller, producer, and National Geographic explorer, and Adam Geiger, executive producer and director of photography. Welcome, Alex and Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So perhaps, Alex, we can start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your research and the work with octopuses that you do, and how did that get you involved in this particular project?
Sure. I guess I started out as a marine biologist because I'd always been intrinsically interested in the ocean. And then I had a real focus on animal behavior, but what drew me was really animal minds. So I ended up specializing as a comparative psychologist. And what we do is really just compare the minds of different animals with a big focus on cephalopods, which include octopus, cuttlefish, and squid. And I believe some of my research on cuttlefish had just come out, showing that they exert self-control, that they can pass an adapted version of the marshmallow test. When the guys at Sea Light found out about the research that I do, Adam and Colette, and they contacted me about this project. They wanted to do a series on octopus behavior and octopus intelligence, and they thought I'd be a good fit.
Adam, tell us a little bit about the project. How did it started? You have a very long, history of director and underwater cinematographer in many spectacular projects. So tell us a little bit about how did you come into this project, and then we can go into spending 2 years underwater all over the world with amazing 8 octopus.
Yeah, thank you. Well, really, the genesis of the project was our spending a lot of time underwater and excuse me, and encountering a lot of octopus, and they're just so fascinating. So I've seen them in various locations around the world, and that's been great. And then we heard about a fascinating study that was being done here in Australia, where there was actually what seemed to be a community of octopus in one particular location, and that piqued our interest even more. So that's what generated our initial interest. Colette Beaudry, my partner at Sea Light, and myself, and we started researching what more octopus could do, and we found that there were such incredible examples of the different characteristics of octopus and different animals in different places that sort of exemplify those characteristics, that ultimately led us to Alex. And so we did quite a bit of research. With Alex's help, we formulated what we thought would be a great way to present this incredibly unique, alien-like, but somehow tremendously engaging animal to the world. And that's how we got into it.
And am I correct that that was a 2-year project?
Yes, it actually, the project took a little over 2 years. In the end, it was about 1.5 years of filming in the field. So around 200 filming days, somewhere over 1,500 total team hours underwater, filming octopus in all kinds of different locations, from very cold water in Canada to the tropics and coral reefs, kelp forests, sandy plains, all kinds of different locations.
And for both of you, how did you devise which are the octopuses and the situations that we're going to follow? In terms of crafting that narrative and casting. I know we have Scarlett, which is the star of the show, and Alexander, you can talk to us about your relationship with Scarlett in a little bit, but perhaps just for people that can't figure out, how do you put the show like this together? What are the moving parts? When does the teams, researchers, start working with, cinematographers and then editors, and then how do you craft the arcs, that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it was sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
I think it was a collective effort in that we just tried to brainstorm. There are over 300 known species of octopus, and so we really wanted to choose species that were going to be visually engaging. So even though some octopuses do some wild things, like they might communicate through chemicals, we needed real performers to put on a show for our audience. So that's how we narrowed down our species to 12 that feature in the series. And we were looking for that kind of spectacular behavior that we could weave a narrative around to show a different dimension and perspective of these boneless animals and help the audience connect with them.
I'll just add to that as we did more research, we realized that there were these sort of three broadly different aspects of octopus that we could look at. Their physical abilities, their mental or intelligence abilities, their social abilities. And that helped us focus each episode in the series to specific animals and locations.
And I think one of the beauties of the show is that we have the relationship between Alex and and the octopus, especially in this particular beautiful creature that is Scarlet. Because we kind of we see the love that you have for them and the admiration, and then that creates like an enormous empathy, and like we're almost like kind of like being you right there in the presence of these amazing encounters. So can you tell us a little bit about that, like the decision to include that you in the process, and how is creating a friendship with an octopus?
I think that we didn't really set out to capture that. It was serendipitous that we were able to capture this beautiful connection between me and Scarlet underwater. We were there to see certain behaviors that day octopuses show. And then within a very short period, I had encountered Scarlet, and she grew, she was really quick to grow to trust me. I think I'd only spent 30 minutes with her before she reached out to shake my hand, and then she let me swim alongside her. And then each time we would return to her den over the shooting period, she would appear to recognize me and let me back into her world. And so it happened organically, I guess, that part of the story. And maybe it doesn't seem as surprising because we've heard of stories where humans might create friendships with wild animals, but you've got to put yourself in Scarlet's shoes, where she's a creature that's very vulnerable. She has no skeleton, no shell, no teeth, so nothing to protect herself. And yet, despite that extreme vulnerability, she would let her guard down and let me into her underwater world.
It's really incredible because we also we not only like the fact that she's touching you, but you're there with a camera person. Sometimes you're there with an other scientist. So it's like she's inviting you and your world into
And the
her.
full crew. And Adam and the team had spent time with her beforehand. So Adam had acquainted himself with Scarlet beforehand, and she let them into her world. But yeah, I mean, there were 3 or 4 of us down there at a time, and that must be intimidating. But no, she was there for it.
It really was remarkable because I had spent better part of a week filming Scarlet, and she had let me get very, very close to her, and it's at points just at a point just decided that I wasn't a threat, that this was fine, and but then to see her reach out and touch Alex was just more than we could have hoped for. It was brilliant.
And it's such a because the series also gives us a lot of great information that we might never knew, like the fact that all the little suckers are even more sensitive than our fingertips. So it's
That's
a
right.
very, very, very sensitive animal. It's pretty incredible. But tell us a little bit, Adam, about how did you find the shot that you're looking for? Like, how did you position yourself, like through all these years of incredible cinematography underwater? for people that might be really interested in it, what is your secret for for capturing these amazing moments?
Well, I don't think there's a secret. It's trial and error, perhaps. But the thing with filming an animal like an octopus is that they, first of all, they're not easy to find. They can blend into the bottom. They can disappear. They can hide in a den, and they can be very difficult to find. They're also, as Alex points out, they're very smart. They're very wary. So if they see some huge animal, a diver, one-eyed, bubble-breathing monster coming along the reef that they haven't seen before, they're not likely to stay out in the open. So what it took was the approach that no one has really been able to do before, which is to spend vast amounts of time underwater with one animal. And that was one of the key things in order to have Scarlett, for example, gain or trust our presence, that we were not a threat. And they learned so fast that we were able to do that. And that was true really with every species that we were filming, that we were in the water with. Once you got to that point, you could get a camera close enough to really get those intimate shots that help pull you into the story and make the audience feel that this is a presence, this is a being, there's a thinking, cogitating animal brain inside those eyes, behind those eyes, And so we used a big variety of different lenses and cameras in order to do that, based on conditions for wherever we were. Sometimes we were filming at night. Sometimes we had animals that were no bigger than your thumb. Sometimes they were about as big as an American football. So we had all these different lenses and cameras that would let us quickly adapt to whatever the conditions were and what kind of shots we wanted. The other thing that we did was set out to make each animal and location feel a bit different, so that there was a bit of a different mood in each place. So, for example, with the island octopus in the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean, they live in a very strange environment of a sort of almost a barren coral, rocky outcrop of old coral reef, not dead but old, with these three-dimensional objects of sea fans and sea whips growing up in front of them. And so they're like sneaking through this three-dimensional world. And so we tried to film them, and they are also very wary and very cautious. So we wanted to film them accentuating that. So having things passing through the foreground, having them sneaking behind things. So we tried to add that element visually to the story to help accentuate how they live and where they live. And we did that also with all of the species wherever we could, accentuate that connection between the ecosystem that they live in and how the animal lives and what they do.
And it's pretty incredible. I'm just thinking now about those scenes with the coconut, beautiful little octopus that just carries around these little shells to create a little house and a little den. It's just so amazing that that they are going about their lives and mating even with all of you so close to them. It's pretty magnificent. So I wanted to talk to you about what was the biggest challenge in trying to capture all these different moments that are so special with these animals?
There are a lot of challenges, one of which, it's sort of multiple layers of challenges, if you will. One of the first was simply being able to spend that much time underwater with the animals to gain their trust in order to be able to get that close. And so that meant for most of the shoots are using rebreather diving technology. So that's a fairly technical diving piece of equipment that lets you spend up to 4 to 4.5 hours underwater on each dive. And so that was a key, sort of the mastering for all of the team to be comfortable with this rebreather technology and being able to spend this huge amounts of time underwater. Then there's the aspects of just filming underwater itself, because on any given day, any body of water is affected by weather, it's affected by currents, and underwater visibility changes. There are all of these variables. And so that the water has its own sort of color or presence, which can be different on every day. And so we needed to be able to adapt to that and change our filming style, because the visibility was poorer on today than it was yesterday. So you couldn't get great big wide shots. You had to focus in more closely, just things like that. And even on any given day, you can film on one dive, you can point the camera in one direction and then swing around to get a different angle, and it looks completely different. So it's challenging in that sense to try to make things feel cohesive. We used lighting on virtually everything that we did, because without it, water filters out most warm wavelengths, red, orange, and yellow wavelengths, very quickly. So we want to restore that to the foreground of the image, but only in a very gentle way, so everything feels natural. So if you don't look at the shot and go, oh, right, that was lit with a great big light, then that's good. We don't want to see that. And so we had lighting setups, and we had up to 6 cameras underwater at any one time, with different lenses, different capability in terms of sensitivity of the cameras. So that's how we approached that. That was a challenge in itself, managing all that equipment. So we had a fantastic team of support people on the surface and support divers to help us ferry these cameras around, swap them out if a battery would die or we'd run out of media. And we were always able to, as the cinematographers, we were always able to just focus on the animal and trying to get the shot. So the other factor, of course, is we're filming wild animals, and octopus are very smart, and they're also quite unpredictable. You know, we know a bit about their behavior. There have been research papers, and of course, Alex was able to shed a lot of light on that. But ultimately, you really don't know what an animal is going to do or how it's going to react. And we were able to record, because we spent so much time, we were able to record new behaviors that hadn't been seen before. So that was very, very exciting.
You often have this list of things you want to capture when you go out
Yeah.
into the field, but the octopuses don't get the memo. So a lot of it is just luck and chance.
Alex, you've done a lot of work with as a National Geographic Explorer at Large, and also with James Cameron. This is the latest installment of the award-winning series Secrets of. How is this series different from other National Geographic projects that you've worked on?
Look, I think the series brings to light a character that we wouldn't normally connect with. So I think humans often feel emotions such as empathy and compassion for animals that look like us, that behave like us, that are closely related to us. And the octopus is not. It diverged from humans over 550 million years ago, and our common ancestor was a worm. And so despite having such a strange creature, blue blood, 3 hearts, skin that can change color, within that strangeness, we're seeing these traits that we would normally associate with chimpanzees and elephants and whales. And so I think that's mind-blowing in itself, that a creature so different from us is still showing glimmers of intelligence, and ones that some of us once thought were unique to humans. For example, tool use. It wasn't until the 1960s that we found that animals started using tool use, and that was in chimpanzees and then later in crows. And now we're seeing it in an octopus. And so I think that it brings it puts this different creature on a pedestal. And then with the help of executive producer James Cameron, who is an ambassador of our oceans, I think it just really made the series pop. And yeah, his creative direction was really important in the production. And I think that his passion for the oceans and for the octopus really come through in it.
There's a great moment when you're watching some of the footage with him in like behind the scenes video at the end of the series that is really exciting, and you're both really like in awe of like the moment where you find the octopus sleeping and dreaming, possibly because he's changing colors. He's like having like similar features to people in REM sleeping. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what was that like for you, like being an animal, psychologist. It really you made it look really clear to us that they do in fact dream. Is that what we think?
Well, we can't be sure. What we see is that they have an active phase of sleep, and during that active phase of sleep, they're showing irregular changes in color, and they're producing muscle contractions. And the displays that they're showing might look very similar to the way they might respond to a prey item or a predator in the field. And so it's possible that they're processing the memories of the day, and they could be dreaming. And the reason we say that is because the active phase of sleep that we see in octopus is similar to, like you said, the REM phase that we see in humans, and that REM phase is associated with dreaming. But I think it was incredible that the crew in Turks and Caicos were able to capture that, because it's the first time we've seen that in the wild. It's mainly been studied in the lab. And you even have to wave your hand over the eyes of the octopus to make sure that they are asleep during these times, because they look like they're awake. They look like they're behaving as they would out in the field. But it is incredibly exciting, because dreaming in humans is linked to higher cognitive abilities and the ability to feel emotions and potentially conscious experience. So those connections make it really exciting for the octopus and what they might be capable of.
So the power of storytelling, of course, can motivate people to care about the world. And, National Geographic has a long history of conservation work, but the show focuses on teaching us the wonderful characteristics that you described of this octopus and generating empathy, but it does not go into the threats of conservation, like climate change or human consumption, or like the challenges that these creatures face, in relation to or impact. Can you tell us a little bit about the decision from both of you to not include those elements about the conservation efforts, and also what kind of conservation efforts are you engaged with?
Well, I can start, I suppose. We made a conscious decision not to talk about or show negative impacts of humans on the environment of the octopus. We do include in the series, we do include the discard of civilization, where the pale octopus in Australia, like many species of octopus, has adapted to use anything that they can find that suits their purpose. So discarded bottles, discarded, trash of any kind can actually, can be useful to them. But we didn't want to, our approach was not to try to hit people over the head with the idea that we are significantly affecting the oceans at large and that we need to change that. That's a goal that we want people to take away by falling in love with these very, very engaging animals. That is, as Alex said at the beginning, I think most people would be very surprised to understand just how complex, how intelligent, how social they are, all of those elements that are in the series. So the takeaway, I hope, for people is that they find octopus just tremendously engaging and realize how important it is for them to exist and in their environment, and therefore people want to protect those environments.
Yeah, I think, you're right. It's overwhelming at the moment. To heal our oceans, I think humanity needs to undergo a rapid transformative change towards prioritizing ocean health. and addressing these converging crises of climate change and pollution and biodiversity loss. And I actually believe that the answer lies in empathy. And we hope that through showcasing the vulnerability and intelligence and emotion of the octopus, that the octopus can act as a compelling ambassador to help protect the oceans. And I think this approach really aligns with the latest research from behavioural science, which suggests that fear-based messages like warning about climate change and pollution and plastic consumption can often backfire. It can lead to feelings of shame and defensiveness and a sense of helplessness, and we walk away just feeling completely overwhelmed. So instead, fostering empathy with an ocean inhabitant like the octopus can really cultivate, I think, a profound collective appreciation for nature's role in our well-being and can empower people to act.
I'm Spanish, and I come from a culture that eats octopus in the worst possible conditions. And I really hope that people in Spain get to see this series and like change their eating practices, because it's like it's impossible. You present the octopus as such an incredibly intelligent, and sensitive animal, and role playing and communicating between the species. It's almost like an equal to us, and it's just really magnificent to see them, not only reading about it but just seeing it in action, all these great characteristics that they have. So what can people do at home? Like, what would be the call for action that you would, both of you have a life history of conservation. What can we tell people that want to do something more for the ocean creatures?
Well, I think, like I said, the enormity of the environmental challenges can leave us feeling overwhelmed, and we question the impact of our individual actions on the planet. It's easy to feel small and powerless in the face of these real global issues. But I think it's really crucial to remember that our choices have power. So one of the first steps is to really reflect on our daily decisions and their broader implications. So consider the origins of the food that you eat or the clothes that we wear. Are these produced ethically? Do they cause significant harm to the environment? Our vacation choices also matter. We might opt for destinations closer to home that can significantly reduce our carbon footprint. And then beyond these personal choices, I think it's important to support businesses and politicians who prioritize the environment and can amplify our impact.
Yeah.
Adam, any takeaways from you?
Oh, geez. Well, I agree with, of course, with everything that Alex has just said. I think that we can also start small. I mean, just appreciating the fact that we have to reduce the amount of plastic we consume. If you go to the beach, pick up bits of plastic, take trash off the beach or out of the water if you're in the water. Just anything you can do to try to minimize your impact on the planet. Use less water. Just simple things that don't necessarily seem like much, but they do help. And I think, as Alex says, it's really sort of a collective power of appreciating the planet and the importance of supporting, anybody who is trying to help the environment, and that's what we need to do.
Well, this was an incredible series. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. We learned so many fascinating things about Secrets of the Octopus, and if I'm not mistaken, it's premiering in celebration of Earth Day on Nat Geo in April 21st and streaming the next day on Disney+. So thank you so much, Alex and Adam. Thank you for being here with us today, and thank you, everybody, for watching at home.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.